Hey folks, Jonathan here. Got our header kit in, so we'll get started on it pretty soon. Let's see where we're at on the car. Okay, we got the body exactly where we want it now, and we're working on steering. So the box is mounting inside, and see the shaft coming out the side of the cow, and I will make a piece and recess it and make that look right. And basically we're just running up the steering. Now what we've got is we've got to get it in closer to the cow because it's going to hit the tire where it's at. We want it just as straight as we can get it with the car. And we got the firewall just shoved back on there. And
the corners cut.
Yeah, I had to cut the corners in the bottom. I didn't like that, but we'll work with it. So we're just gonna keep at it. Don't like that door. This gap sticking out.
Why'd you like that?
We're gonna do some body work. Twisting. We'll have to work on it. Alright, so we've got Noah has made these pieces for me, and they'll end up getting welded in, and we'll cut out. That way we can get to our body bolts and get our body mounts done and get all this welded up and welded in. So we're going to keep at it, and I'll show you the steering as we go. Okay folks, our mount. This is actually the other steering box that I've got, and we'll probably end up using it. It looks like it might be a little newer. What we've got is it mounted on this side, and we don't need that. That's the top. We need it to mount on the bottom. So we've got bolts. We'll end up changing these out to grade 8, I'm sure. Made spacers. Now, don't use conduit or water pipe or nothing for spacers like this. This was solid rod. It's actually a hot roll. Cut them down to length, machined them, bored them. So now we've got 6 thick wall spacers. 1/4 inch plate will go here, and we'll bolt it on, and then we'll weld all the brackets from the frame to it. Alright, here's where we've gotten. I've got it very temporarily in there, and got a 1/4 inch mount on the bottom side. So once we get it figured out where we want it and everything like that, we will fabricate some bracing and mount, and it'll do a whole lot better. Now this steering column hadn't been cut or anything, so we went ahead and just put it in with the wheel. This is set up temporary. We're just checking the swing on it. The arm's out too far, but our plan is, instead of bending this, I think what we'll do is cut the end of it off, bee it, and turn it around and put this in from the other side. I can do either one, but if I turn it over, it's going to move it a little bit farther. And then we don't have to have this. As you can see, the wheels are straight, and we've got it kicked back a little bit. So it really needs to go farther forward. And once it's farther forward, that means it won't come back as far. I'll show you what I mean. There's all the way back. It won't come back as far as that. So, pretty aggressive box. In other words, quick steering. This is actually off of a rear steer Jacobson mower, the ones I took the Perkins diesel out of. So I got an idea that this might be a little bit hard to steer with this long shaft. We could shorten it some if we needed to, but it's got way more swing than we need. And the only problem now is, before we get to where we need to go, it's hitting the bar. So we need to move this in. So we're just going to keep playing with it until we can get it where we want it. Once we get it where we want it, we're going to come to the front of these spindles and make sure that these stops work. But we've got to line the front end first because the drag length is off, so we can get the wheels exactly straight. We'll keep working with it slowly, and we've just set the firewall back in. We're a little bit close on the distributor. Probably going to end up welding it back in, which it's going to work out just fine because we needed to take it out anyway. Do a little bit of cutting and stuff on it. So yeah, didn't get to the pedals, not yet, but I'm not done yet tonight anyway. I'm going to go in and eat and then come back out and see what we can get accomplished here. I'll first shift's over and I'll get started on second shift here in just a little bit, and like I said, unless the phone rings, I guess I'll show you the wrecks we got. Okay folks, here was the head-on accident. I guess it wasn't quite head-on, but it was close to being head-on. So here's the Dodge. I don't even know what year this is. I didn't even ask her, didn't look at the paperwork, but anyway, as you can see, it's pretty tore up, ripped the wheel off of it. Now this vehicle was not at fault. This vehicle actually was coming down the road and getting ready to come into a curve, and a car was on the wrong side of the road or had crossed, and they tried to get over far enough, you know, in the heat of driving too. I mean, you know, they was both moving at pretty good speed, so but they did get over, and about halfway out of their lane, I guess is what it was, because the point of impact where this wheel had actually come off at, and you could see where the concrete started to get tore up, was actually in the middle of this person's lane. But here is the car that hit it. This is a little Chevy Malibu, I believe. And yeah, of course, no tags, no insurance, no driver's license, and that's not the worst part. The worst part is the lady in this car had 4 kids in this car, little kids, and they was not in seat belts, and they was not in car seats, 4 of them. So when this wreck happened, when I got there, they was life flighting people. Now, as to this point, no one, you know, has passed away or anything, but it's just it's a damn shame that, you know, someone would do this, you know, driving around with no insurance, no license, and no tags, and then let their kid, you know, ride in the vehicle. So, you know, I don't know what to say. Luckily, these people had underinsured motorists, so their insurance company's going to cover this. You know, the insurance company's going to try to sue these other people, of course, to get the money, and then, you know, they're never going to get a thing out of it. And your tax money is going to be paying for all the medical bills for this before it's over with, and your insurance is going to go up and pay for this one. So that's how that works when you ride around with no damn insurance. So, all right, let's get on to better things here. Working away at it. Working on. We've left the steering exactly where it's at because you know, we got other stuff to build around it, so we want to get everything right before we, you know, do anything that is going to mess us up. Now, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to run this steering wheel just where it's at. There's a good possibility I can. Worst comes to worst, I'll cut the shaft, put a U-joint on it, run a different, you know, steering sector, whatever I need to do. I mean, it's not a big deal to change the height of it. Also, the length, we need to bring it closer to the dash because it looks like it's back a pretty good ways, but when I'm done here, it may not be, because the pedals are not going to be way up under like they were in this body originally. You know, this one. So anyway, here's what we've got. Now, this is a set of pedals out of a forklift, and at one time when you shoved the clutch in, once it went so far, then it applied the brake, the master cylinder, and there was actually a little tiny brake booster was up in front. So we're not going to run it like that. We've got our steering sector there in the way and all that. We're trying to keep everything, you know, as much hidden as we can, you know, steering gearbox and stuff like that. But what we're going to have, this will be the clutch pedal, and when we're done, like I said, you know, we can move left and right. That's not a big deal, depending on where we put the mount and where we put our shaft. And this particular one, this bottom of the clutch pedal has a roll pin that goes through it. big heavy 3/8 roll pin, and it makes this turn, and this will be your clutch. But we need to be, this needs to be on the bottom. We can turn it halfway, but the problem is I need to be in line with that hole right there in the fork as close as I can. So this will come down just a little bit. There'll be a rod running from here, running to our clutch, and when you hit the pedal and it pulls the rod, it'll pull the fork, and that'll engage our clutch. Brakes, what we'll do is the bottom side of it here will come down, and you can see the pedal. We're gonna, I think we're gonna shorten these up too and get them a little bit closer down. Now the longer you have it, the better leverage you have, but you can also change your leverage with your bottom one. But we'll get into all that later. But what we'll do is come off of this end and mount the master cylinder right here beside the frame, and then we'll run a lever down off the bottom of the pedal and run the rod from there into the master cylinder. And we'll go ahead and run a 2-stage master cylinder, and that way we'll have it under the floor. The pedals will be below the floor, and when we build the floor we'll just slot them or whatever we need to do, and the steering will be up under inside. And what I'll end up doing is welding a lot more bracketry to the mount for the steering before we're said and done. And but it's going to work out fine. That leaves us room on this side over here. Even with these bigger wider pedals, it still gives us room for our gas pedal. The gas pedal in the 31, the way that I set it up where it was a little bit above the transmission or a little bit above the hump, it really worked out well, because my foot, like I said, it always lays at an angle, and giving it gas right in this area is just perfect. So that'll work out good on this. Everything's coming along actually pretty well, and I think everything's going to work out. Hopefully we'll still be able to pull this body off when we get all these mounts on, and if not, it's gonna make it harder on us, but we're gonna still be able to do it. And we've got to get started on the floor. Of course we're going to do more on these pedals before we even start on that. All of this has to come out, and it's actually way too high, so we'll work on that. The clearance between the wheel and the door is actually good compared to like my L car, which is really close. But now we can go with a different steering wheel, smaller wheel, whatever. That's not an issue there either. And we're a little bit over to the left from where the original was, but we had to do that to get the box out of the cowl where we needed it. We'll redo this hole around this and put some kind of a seal around it or something, maybe on the inside. But what we want to do is of course keep weather out. But if the body moves, it's not going to move over 1/4 inch, something like that, either direction. But we want to make it where if it moves, it don't interfere with that at all. And we also want to make it look good at the same time. So that's part of the finish process. We're just doing the rough end stuff now. And this is absolutely not going to stay like this. We're not using this square rod. We're going to build a rod coming off of here. Probably use that heavy joint. I like that tie rod end style ball joint. But we'll connect into the original up here and make us a nice shaft. And once we get it figured out what we need lengthwise and all that, this is just a lot of temporary stuff. Holes in the frame. These will all be fixed. That frame will be boxed on the inside. I will be putting an oil filter adapter on this. That canister that's on it's way bigger than what the filter will be, so we're going to be fine changing that. Starter's fine. The headers that we're running, let me get one of the pipes and I'll show you. Okay, these are the old style megaphone style pipes. So your first pipe comes out of your cylinder into the front, and the rest of them come in and join. And I can't show you the angle, but they all curve back into the exhaust, so it gives it a good flow. Now this will come up right around probably where it's at, right around this area, and then this gets capped off. It's a bolt-on cap that you can take off if you ever go to the drag strip or the, wherever you want to go, salt flats. And then there's a pipe that goes in the bottom of this that welds on, and it's 2-inch, and it bolts. I got a flange, and it bolts a exhaust pipe on it that will come down and then run back. And we're going to run probably a little bigger pipe than what that 2-inch is, and we're going to come down and we're going to come back, and we're probably going to build maybe a set of use a set of glass packs or something like that down the side of it. And but anyway, this is like a megaphone, and some people face them down. It's just however we want to build it when we build it. And the main thing is we've got everything we need to do this, and shouldn't be any problem there. A lot of firewall stuff to fix, and, we're just going to keep knocking it out. It's eating an elephant. Okay, I did have Noah clean the truck out today, and everything's in pretty good shape. There's a couple of little tiny rust holes here and there, a little bit right there at the bottom of the fender. Nothing major at all. Now, this was a CST. I could see it on the emblems, so I didn't know whether they had made one in 70 or not, and that is the wood grain. Really hard to see, but that is the wood grain on the side. So like I said, the plan is to bolt this back together. The fenders are nice, the bed sides are nice. We've got the bed panel for the front. There's one bumper which is in fair condition. The rear, of course. Front shouldn't be hard to get a hold of. A rear like this would probably be harder to get, but that is the rear. The grill's in really nice shape. It's cleaned up, but the headlight bezels was in a bucket and it had gotten filled with water. If we can get them, we'll have to get some headlight buckets and quite a few other things. You can see the front for the bed's got some dents in it. We'll try to shrink them up some before we, or at least hammer them out beforehand. And the hood's in really good shape. No rust on it except for surface. But we'll get it cleaned up. This will probably be a good truck just to put some clear on, but I'll show you what the actual cab looks like and all. Okay, figure I'll give you a little better look at this thing since Noah's got most of it cleaned up. No rust that I can see on the firewall or down low. There is a little more rust on the floors than I thought, but not enough to bother me whatsoever. Okay, the doors. Got the old arm wear there. And the rockers. The door on this side is about perfect. We got one little hole in the rocker. Cab corner solid. This is about as nice of a body that I've seen. No rocker issues, and like I said, this is original paint, so it's not packed full of Bondo. It does have a little bit of issues in the bottom of the door up here toward the front. Nothing real major. Floors, nothing really through here. There's a little bit up toward the front and where the gas pedal goes. That won't be a problem. Won't need to replace the floors. It's just going to need a little bit of work here and there. Everything looks pretty good inside. Unfortunately, the tag on the inside of the glove compartment was ripped off at one time, so I can't tell what the options are on this truck. And like I said, it is an automatic. And headliner's still in it, and the visors in good shape. Don't know how the tank is. I'm sure it's probably shot. It actually not even it don't even have a gas smell in it. You can't smell any gas, even old gas, so we may get lucky on that, you never know. Top of the bed is fine. It's got surface rust. There's no major dents and no rust holes whatsoever in it. It came with a part of a rear end. This is another rear end for one of these trucks. But somebody has done some cutting. The tube's been out, and somebody has narrowed this up the distance between here and here is a lot narrower than what it is on that truck. And I have not pulled the cover off this one. It does have a pinion, but I don't know whether it's got any ring gears in it or not. Probably should do that, but because I really needed the 308 for my other truck, but we'll see. Both upper A-frames, both lower A-frames, and disc brake setup for 5 lug. I don't know what year this stuff came off of, whether it's 72 or if it's up above that, 73. And there's the rear drums, some of the heater stuff, some of it I'm sure is missing. There's only one axle, rear axle, some steering components. We just tried to keep everything that was for this truck in it. Ashtray. And here's this side. A little bit of surface rust, nothing major, solid. We've got a couple of holes right here in the rocker. Bottom of the door is good on the outside, but just like the other one, it has some issues on the inside. It's got some major issues here, which can be taken care of. And it's just this edge for some reason. It's not underneath, just this edge where water, I guess, would sit in it. And right here on the rocker, which that shouldn't be a big issue. And like somebody had mentioned on there, parts are really available for this thing and easy to get a hold of. So, like I said, about as good a shape as I've ever seen of, an original truck. No rust, major anyway. No rust on the roof besides the surface rust. No holes, no dents. So it's been taken care of. But the plan is later on, we're not going to do it right now, but we're going to put this thing back together with all original parts. And I just realized I was missing the piece above it too, and that's a shame because that one's painted. So we'll see what we can do. But maybe we can get lucky and find a green one. But we're gonna put the engine that came out of the race car in this, and probably the automatic transmission, and just give it a try and see if it'll work or not. And hopefully we can deal with a power steering pump on this, or power steering on it. I don't know if the 73 up will fit it. It's busted right here too. It's probably a freeze crack, got water down in it and froze. But as nice as I could ever ask for a, for that body style. I mean, finding one in that good a condition with the bed good and the fenders good and all that is pretty rare nowadays. So, all right. I know I got the seat out too that was laying in it. I just wanted to show you on the passenger side. It looks like there was a fire. I don't understand how, but seat's definitely been on fire. But it just don't bother me for some reason. But I like that design. That'll be, I don't know if you can see the sew-in design, but that would be a challenge for me to try to sew it like that. So if that's original, we'll probably try to copy that and do this, of course, in green. Go back with the original. At one time that burn mark would have bothered me, but for some reason it don't now. Alright, okay, back to the Roadster. One thing that we're definitely, absolutely, positively, no doubt gonna have to do is get rid of these daggone shocks that they have got on the front of this thing. So far this front end is stiff as a board. The back end feels good, the front end is stiff. I don't know if we're gonna have to take a couple springs out, what we're gonna have to do. I don't mind the height. It sits up a little high, which I don't mind at all. So I'm not too worried about putting a drop spindle on it, or a drop axle on it, I'm sorry. But I don't want it stiff as a board. And even with this engine and bouncing on it, it's tight. But when you do it, you see these brackets twisting this frame. Now I'm going to box the frame, but I still don't want this big giant lever up here prying on my frame crooked like that. That's just not going to happen. So these are gone, these brackets are gone, the brackets down here are gone. and we're going to come up with a different shock setup than that. And I would go without shocks before I ran them. Definitely not going to happen. The intake, I'm going to make a plate that goes between this carburetor and the intake, and just a thin plate, but I'm going to extend that plate back and I'm going to extend it forward, and we're going to mount the other two carburetors on that plate, and then I'm going to do some fabrication to bring it down and make it look like it's actually part of the manifold. That's the plan if I have time. If I don't, you know, we'll skip it, but I've had the carburetors to make this look like a 3-deuce setup, but only run in the center, which I'm totally happy with, because, you know, this little 239 is not going to handle 3 carburetors, I'm sure. Alright, I'm going to see if I can do a little bit more here before it gets too dark, and we'll end up calling it a night. Alright. Okay, one more thing I forgot. You know, we'd started with this galvanized brake line around here, and I just couldn't bring myself to use it. I don't like the fact that it's galvanized. You know, paint don't stick to galvanized. A lot of other things don't. You can treat it, you know, vinegar, or, you know, they make some solvents and stuff that'll take the galvanized off and be able to paint, but I just don't like it. Don't like any part of it. So my son went to Lowe's yesterday, and they had a bunch of 1/4-inch rod that was on clearance, and I think this is 3/8. I think the rest of that is 1/4-inch, but 3-foot and 4-foot pieces, and this 5/16. Okay, this 5/16, these are 1/4-inch, but they had it on sale for $1 a piece, and he had called me, and I just told him to go ahead and get it. And, you know, normally I'd buy this in a 20-foot stick, but not much difference in price from $1 a piece and buying a 20-foot stick, but, you know, it was nice to be able to get it without having to make a special trip. And they had some flat bar there too, and he went ahead and grabbed. But $1 a piece on clearance was pretty good. So now we're going to go with solid steel. Now some of this is hot roll, some's cold roll. You can tell by the blue and the red on the ends, but we'll mix match it. It's not a big deal. And that way when we do our edges, we can weld them in and, you know, grind them and then put our fiberglass on, and I'll feel a little bit better about it, because that, you know, that brake line tubing was just, you know, going to bother me no matter what. Well folks, it's about to get dark on me. Worked on designing the mounts, the bracket I need to come off of the frame, and then I think I'm going to rework this cross member that I've got. It's got a drive shaft loop in it, but I think I'll box it. But this is actually going to go on the body itself, and tie the body together, and also be part of the mount. And we'll put this at floor level, and then we'll be able to cut all this out. We'll get our rear piece in so we can start getting some of this fabrication, you know, the metal fabrication done inside. So, alright, well, I'm going to call it an evening anyway. So you can see what we've gotten done. I got the jack on top of the transmission holding this up because I'm doing, you know, front mounts too while I'm at it. So once I get this center, these 2 center and 2 front done, that'll be everything for the mounts, and we'll be able to move right along. So, alright, well, I appreciate everybody watching, and never get as much done as I'd like to get done, but, you know, I'm always at least moving in the right direction. So we'll show you more hopefully tomorrow. Alright, bye.